Draft busts are always fun to debate, and the NBA has no shortage of players to choose from. Dan and I got together, and we chose who we think is the biggest NBA bust of all time. Today on The GOAT. Everybody, and welcome to another episode of The GOAT, the show where we debate the biggest questions in sports and let you decide. I'm your host, Jeff Lambert, and I'm joined, as always, by my partner, Daniel Duran. Dan, we have an exciting episode for the fans today. We are going to be discussing the biggest NBA draft bust in history. Dan, why did we choose this topic?
Oh, man. I think we chose this topic because it's actually really fun. I mean, when you start doing some research and you go over all the amazing draft busts, it just so happened we were originally, I think, just going to do draft busts, right? And I think we both kind of chose NBA players, so we decided, okay, let's do NBA draft busts, and we can do like NFL draft busts another time. But this is such a fun thing to go over to see just how bad. Let me say this better. How bad a potential prospect could have been. So you know, it's fun. It's just a fun topic.
It is, and we love to get into the hypotheticals. Like we do this all the time. We'll talk about, well, what if this team had this guy? Would that have made the difference? Or if there had been a full squad for this team in this season, could it have been the difference? So this lines right up with the conversations, arguments we usually have, and that's. Yeah. Especially with the NBA, there's so many choices. It's so wide open. But we've done the research, and we have two for your consideration who we think are the biggest busts in history. Before we get to that, Dan, we have to announce the winner of last week's episode, where we debated who's the greatest athletic talent of all time. And we were debating between Deion Sanders and Jim Thorpe. So who was the winner of that episode? And I'm not even going to play a drum roll for this one. You'll see why in a second.
No. Nobody won. Dang it, twice in a row we had no winner. Last time it was a tie, but this time, can you believe it? You guys, and we know you listen, we know you watch, and we clearly now know you don't vote. No one voted. So it's a tie. We have two ties. We have two asterisks. And man, I was pretty sure I got that one, Jeff.
I don't know, man. I was feeling confident too. And, it's frustrating, folks. We put a lot of time into this. And like Dan said, the metrics show you, listen, what happened? This is like voting where you complain about the state of the country, but you don't go out on election day and vote. We need you to put in your word. It helps. And to maybe push a little bit more for this episode, in addition to asking you to vote, Dan, what are we offering the listeners?
Listen, if you vote, we are going to put your vote into a raffle, right? And if you win, there will be two winners. So if you win, you will get a lovely GOAT mug. This is two of a kind. I can't even
limited edition
because there are two. And this is a two of a kind. So you vote this time. We want to reward you guys for helping us out in voting because, again, our arguments become stalemate. There's no winner. So we need you to vote. So you get put in the raffle. You win. We send you, we contact you, get your address, so forth, and we send you a mug. Remember, future episodes, you can suggest topics. Follow us on Facebook. Facebook's one of the easiest ways to look at, watch, listen, and vote. The link's there, right? The links are there. Or you could check us up on YouTube at Goat Sports Pod, or you can email us at goatspodcast@hotmail.com.
That's right.
Mail. So yeah, check us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Every time we post something, we have a vote link there as well. Vote. I mean, if people started voting, we know this is going to be one-sided. But to give my partner Jeff some hope, just vote, guys, vote.
Give me hope, folks. That's all we're asking for. That's what we need, and we just love to hear from you. So just keep that in mind as we go. Dan, let's hop into today's topic real quick. Let's just go over if someone's just stumbled onto this episode and they're like a fan of raising goats on a farm and they're like, what is this? But I like it. I'm going to keep listening. How does the show work? Just a quick format.
All right, so what we do, we flip a coin, right? And then we take turns presenting the argument of the GOAT of that day. So, for instance, today is greatest NBA draft bust. So we'll take turns. Of the winner goes first of the coin toss. We'll take turns presenting each argument. And then after both people have presented their arguments, each person gets a chance to have counterpoints to weaken their opponent's argument. Then we ask you guys, the fans, to vote, which means you have to click on the vote link. And then after hearing us and decided who's going to win, and then you decide who wins. You get to decide, not me and Jeff. This is for bragging rights. This is for my mouth to talk more trash to Jeff of 30 plus years of me doing this. So yeah, that's how it works, guys. So if you're just listening the first time, it's simple, but it's fun.
So today's episode, let's get to the topic. We're talking about the NBA's greatest draft bust. I chose none other than Greg Oden. And Dan, who did you go with?
I went with Darko Milicic. Did I say that right?
I believe you did.
I did. I think I did. Darko, and most people don't know who he is, but that's my pick, and you'll know why.
So let's get to the argument. We obviously flip a coin to see who gets to go first for their opening argument. So let me just, for those of you watching, I'm sharing my screen so you can see it this time. Dan, do you see that lovely?
I see it. Holy moly. Look at
I
that.
know, isn't that nice? So please, sir, call it in the air now.
Tails.
Yes. Oh.
Wait.
Oh.
Yes, I'm second.
Yes. You like to go second. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Dan's happy, and I don't mind going first. It's okay with me. It lets me kind of get the upper hand in your brain. At least I hope that's how it goes. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest NBA draft bust. I present to you that person should be none other than Greg Oden. Let me give you a quick recap of who Greg Oden was. He's not dead, but he's not in the NBA anymore. Greg Oden was a 7-foot, 250-pound center who played for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Lasted one season. Shouldn't say lasted. He declared for the draft after one season, his freshman year. The reason he did so is because he was that dominant during his time in college professional sports. And I should mention, too, in high school, he just dominated as well. He was named to the McDonald's All-American team 3 out of 4 years. Every award that you can win on the national level as a high schooler, Greg Oden did it. He gets to Ohio State. In his first year, he leads the Buckeyes to the national championship, where they unfortunately lost to the Florida Gators, but he racked up some huge individual numbers in that game, did everything that he could to take him to the promised land, fell just one step short. He was named to the All-American team for collegiate players in the NCAA, and he was the first freshman named to that squad in 16 years. That's how dominant he was in that first season. He never lost a home game as a college player also during that season. So this is the guy who, after the season's over, declares for the NBA draft, and everyone's losing their mind because of the fact the hype around this guy was insane. And that brings me to the first reason why I think Greg Oden is the biggest bust of all time. This guy's ceiling is seldom compared to other draft picks coming into the league. This guy was literally hailed as one of the next saviors of an NBA franchise. Just keep that in mind as we go. And I'm going to give you some details to prove my point that people were expecting something amazing with Greg Oden when he was drafted. All right. So he declares for the draft immediately. Names, talking heads, everybody's comparing him to be the next Shaquille O'Neal or the next Hakeem Olajuwon. And keep in mind, this is still the mid-2000s when big men were still usually that piece that everybody was after to complete their championship aspirations. So this guy was already being hailed as two of the greatest centers in basketball history as being the heir apparent to those two guys. All right. So the Portland Trailblazers have the number 1 pick in the 2007 draft, right? And immediately, Greg Oden's the guy to take. Who else could it be? And the reason they thought Oden would be the guy to take was because Portland already had 2 very promising pieces that they felt if they added Oden to would be their ticket to the NBA championship. They had a very young and very talented Brandon Roy, and they also had an all-star LaMarcus Aldridge. So Greg Oden was going to be that third piece to Portland winning that championship. People were losing their mind about Greg Oden joining to make this big 3. The city of Portland had billboards all over the place in anticipation of Greg Oden being selected. There were national magazines from Sports Illustrated to ESPN, you name it, hailing this guy as the next great talent, the one that was going to bring a championship to Portland. Everything you can think of. The city was ready for Greg Oden to come to town. You think about, just as a recent example, think about Joel Embiid and the hype that he had before the draft. And there were concerns about his health before the draft, but people, again, really put this guy up on a pedestal as being the next great talent. He's lived up to that, certainly, in terms of his individual play. But just imagine the hype that Embiid got recently and triple that, times it by 3. And that's what Greg Oden was getting in terms of the anticipation of what this guy was going to do when he reached this level. And keep in mind, it wasn't like this was a horrible draft. The guy who was the clear number 2 pick behind Greg Oden was Kevin Durant, who also was the other freshman that was named to the All-American team for the first time in 16 years. In any other draft, Kevin Durant, for a decade in any other draft, Kevin Durant would have been the clear number 1 pick, right? But not in this draft. That was the hype around Greg Oden, that he was the guy that should go number 1, even over someone like Kevin Durant. So it wasn't like he was the only selection. You had another first ballot Hall of Famer right behind him to choose from, and they still went with Greg Oden. That was the hype level that this guy had going into the league. And what I define as a draft bust, and this is maybe where Dan and I differ, and this is where we're depending on your vote. When I think of an NBA draft bust, I think about a guy's production compared to his anticipation. How great is he expected to be compared to how he performed? And the gap between those two things for Greg Oden was tremendous. So let's talk about the reality. What was the letdown like for Greg Oden once he was drafted? He went number 1 overall. No surprise there. Right before he even played a single game, he had to have knee surgery. And he didn't play a single game during his rookie season, not one, because he was recovering from that knee injury. He was slated to come back his second season, and the NBA was actually going to account his second season as his rookie season because he didn't play. And he got hurt in the season opener of his second season right off the bat. And he bounced back and forth on and off the injury list. He only played 39 games in his second season. In his third season with Portland, he played just 21 games. And in his fourth season, he didn't play a single game. So put that all together, folks. The guy who got billboards, national magazine attention, who was taken over Kevin Durant, who was expected to lead this city to a championship. In all that time with Portland, he played just 82 games. He averaged 8 points and 6 rebounds a game over 82 games in 5 seasons. Isn't that horrible? I think I just said it all right there. He tried to attempt a comeback. He played for the Miami Heat for 2 seasons. 1 season, he completely missed rehabbing with Miami. The second season, he played just 23 games. He was out of the NBA by 26 years old. That is the absolute gap between what people thought Greg Oden was going to be and what he turned out to be. And really, it comes down to 3 main points, ladies and gentlemen. The city of Portland really thought Greg Oden was going to be their key to bringing home a championship. He was the guy they went with over Kevin Durant. He gave them absolutely nothing back. Nothing. Not even as a role player off the bench. To put that much hope into a player, to see a city rally around a guy the way that Portland did, and then to see them crushed in the way that they were in terms of the production they got back from Greg Oden, completely unmatched by any other player in NBA history. And you know who agrees with me that Greg Oden was the greatest bust of all time? Greg Oden does. He was quoted in an interview saying, quote, "I'll be remembered as the biggest bust in NBA history," end quote. So, folks, Greg Oden and I would like to present to you the case that Greg Oden was the greatest NBA bust in history. Dan, I'll kick it over to you.
Well, good argument, Jeff. I think it was good. And the funny thing is, this is a first, guys. This is a GOAT first. Me and Jeff are using the same type of argument.
Bravo.
We talked. He talked about the expectation versus the reality, and it's very true. Greg Oden was expected, but in a draft that featured LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and Chris Bosh, the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, walked away with Darko Milicic. Let that sink in, my Pistons fans. That is who you picked. He was the number 2 pick in 2003. And in this draft, this number 2 pick never once averaged more than 8.8 points per game throughout his tenure in the league. See, scouts left his combine thinking that this man had absolutely no flaw in his game. He was a 7'1" European that apparently could shoot, so therefore he must be the next Dirk Nowitzki. As it turns out, the Dirk comparison was 1,000,000% inaccurate. Now, after people watching his workouts, there is quotes talking about the greatness that is Darko Milicic. So I'm going to read some of these quotes, right? David Robinson said to ESPN magazine, Darko reminds me of a young Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt used to do a little of everything, and I haven't seen a big man with so much skill since Wilt. Pistons trainer Arnie Kander said the same in the same article. Says you can't teach Darko's lateral quickness or explosiveness. He needs to get a bit stronger, but not too strong, because the quickness that gives him a bigger advantage in the post more than strength will ever be. All right. Another quote: the gap that once existed with international players is now gone. And with the position that Milicic plays, he's right in line to take a team that's not on the map and put it there. One more, guys. One more. Of the top 3, Carmelo is the most accomplished. He'll be a dominant NBA scorer. Every time scouts begin to talk about him, the names of Antoine Walker and Glenn Robinson are evoked. That's not bad company. But is he a guy to turn the Nuggets around? Combine him with Nene and Hilario, you have a start. But if you had Darko Milicic, you are a guaranteed winner. These are scouts. There are much more. But these are a few of the expectation given to Darko, right? He was a 7-foot European. Like I said, automatically Dirk Nowitzki. Everyone's looking for the next Dirk, right? A tall power forward who could play the wing, who can shoot the 3, right? Milicic should have never been selected so high. If you look at the top 5, excluding Milicic, you have maybe a best top 5 draft of all time. Now, Detroit went to win a title Milicic's rookie year, but that man barely played a minute. Maybe if he was drafted in a different position, he would thrive, but the fact of the matter is he didn't. He looks inept on the court. Although he managed to hang around for 10 years, he had never shown glimpses of what made him a number 2 draft pick. All right. If you YouTube this man, right? Everybody listen, you need to YouTube this guy, right? Type in Darko Milicic highlights. Every single listener here can accomplish one of his highlights. You know, if you Google Michael Jordan, LeBron James, these other number 2, number 1 picks, you look at their highlights, you think, wow, that makes them stand out. They're real athletes. If you look at this guy, there's not one thing in this YouTube highlight you will see that, wow, this guy's amazing. Now, we talked about expectations. Jeff talked about expectations, right? In 2003, a scout told Sports Illustrated that 1/5 of NBA teams thought that the young Serb would be better than LeBron James. Can you imagine that? They thought for some reason that this guy who had never played a single bit of professional basketball would be better than the king, the inheritor of the airness and the Mamba royalty, right? That he would be better than him. And the Pistons thought that he would be better than Carmelo Anthony, better than Chris Bosh, better than Dwayne Wade. How did so many people get fooled? Well, apparently in his workout, he hit 97% of his shots. So that means he's a practice superstar. But when he got into the league, let me show you guys some numbers. Not show you guys, let me tell y'all some numbers. Oh, before that, one more quote. It's in Chad Ford's ESPN.com said, he's the real deal. He's really one of a kind. He runs the floor, handles the ball, shoots the NBA three-pointer, plays with his back to the basket. You can slide him in a 3, 4, or 5. No weaknesses. Darko was not a shot blocker. He was not a three-point shooter. The man could barely hit a field goal. In fact, his athleticism, very poor. But I talked about this, we got to go by the numbers, right? Statistically speaking, Darko averaged 6 points for his career. He averaged, 4 rebounds, 1 block, not even 1 assist, 0.9 assists, right? 18 minutes per game. The number 2 overall pick of 2003 could not average any more than 20 minutes a season. Season 1, he averaged 5 minutes. Season 2, 23 minutes. That's not bad. But then he went to 20 and 22, then 5 again, then 8.9. The number 2 pick, folks, the guy who was going to be better than LeBron James, the king, Darko Milicic. This is a no-brainer. The guy who was arguably in the greatest draft class of all time, the number 2 pick, never even was a mention in Rookie of the Year. Not even a thought. So let that sink in, guys. Darko Milicic, by far the worst bust ever to play in the NBA. And with that, Jeff, I win.
Well said, Dan. I think we have 2 great opening arguments for the listeners to just kind of let churn around in their head. And while you let that churn around in your head, and get up and grab a drink, maybe get something to eat, because I know you're just famished from all the food we just threw at you, all that knowledge. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Well, folks, we're doing something a little different for our intermission today. We've decided to move the section where we talk about our GOAT picks to the middle of the episode as a way for us to get quicker into the topic that we're discussing. So, as a way for you to support us, we have products that we use on a daily basis that we recommend to you. And if you decide that you want to try these products, you can click on the link in our show notes or our description. And if you decide to buy them, we get a commission for that. So for our GOAT picks for this month, Daniel, what did you choose?
I chose Dude Wipes. And the reason I'm telling you guys about Dude Wipes is because friends, don't let friends ruin their butts with toilet paper, right? Wet wipes designed to give your butt a clean, refreshing finish, right? Dude Wipes are 25% larger than the average flushable wipe, and they're made by plant-sourced fibers, so you won't find any plastic or anything else on that. These wipes, you never want to do the one ply again. That's the fact. Once you start using them, you're never going to want to do the one ply again. Dude Wipes are revolutionary and was born on a fateful day when a man in Chicago's apartment had quite the harsh toilet paper, right? And he needed something to forever change him. And today, this man decided to make Dude Wipes to make sure you are clean, fresh. It's plant sourced, free of parabens and dyes, so you know that your special release area is not getting anything wrong. Yes, I said release area. So Dude Wipes, listen, people, you try it. I'm forever changing your life. You try it, you'll never want to go back.
And for my GOAT pick this month, I am going with a product called the Bridgestone Pro Dock. Now, why do I recommend this product? I'm using it right now. What is it? Well, it's a dock that you can connect to your computer that gives you more ports. Now, that sounds pretty standard because you can get any old dock for your computer. But why is the Bridgestone Pro better? Well, it comes down to the amount of ports that you get that you can run simultaneously. See, a lot of the cheap docks that you can get on Amazon or other online stores give you a lot of options, but especially when it comes to outputting audio and video, you can only do one at a time. So if you're like me and you like to have multiple monitors going or having multiple feeds that you need a dock that can handle doing them simultaneous. So with the Stone Pro Dock, you have that ability to plug in HDMI, to use DisplayPort. You also get USB-A, you get USB-C, you get an SD card slot, you get an Ethernet jack. You get 8 ports in total, and they allow you, like I said, to run both audio and video simultaneously. So if you're serious about keeping a lot of different accessories plugged into your computer at one time, you cannot do better than the Bridgestone Pro Dock. That does it for our section of GOAT picks for this month. Let's go ahead and get back to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the GOAT. Thanks for sticking with us. We are in the middle of debating who was the greatest NBA draft bust in history. I chose none other than Greg Oden, and Daniel chose none other than Darko Milicic. So we've made our opening arguments to you. Now is the chance for us, as we have listened to each other, be able to try and poke holes in the other's argument, maybe present some counterpoints to help you figure out how you're going to vote. So, Dan, since I won the toss, that means I get to go first for my corner points. Okay. So here we go, folks. I do have some things to say to you, Dan, and I think you made some good points. Look, Darko obviously did not live up to his hype. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But there's a couple things I want to just present for consideration as to why, even though there was a lot of disappointment, it doesn't compare to the descent that Greg Oden had in terms of how good he was supposed to be compared to what he turned out to be. So a couple things I want to point out to you. Number one, you brought up a lot of quotes about scouts saying that Darko was basically going to be, the next savior of the NBA. It's scouts. It's hard to put much stock into what they say. I'm just going to give you an example of that. Did you know, Dan, during that draft, which you are 100% right in calling one of the greatest of all time, if not one of the greatest drafts of all time, that 2003 draft, Dan Le Batard, the guy that has the show on ESPN, national column, big name during this draft, he said, quote, when he was talking about players in this draft, you're going to love this one. Oh, did I lose it? Hold on, folks. I had it right here. Oh, no. He basically called LeBron. He said, you're going to be disappointed by LeBron James and that Darko was going to be the better player. So you have a lot of talking heads. You have a lot of scouts just saying things about Darko being better than even LeBron James. But look how bad they got it. Some of the stuff they said, even about LeBron James not becoming the greatest player, which he clearly did. So just trying to bring up the point that you can't always listen to what scouts say because they have a horrible track record to begin with. The hype around Darko was based on his workouts. That's it. That's why everybody was losing their mind, because scouts tend to do that. They're looking for the diamond in the rough, right? But look, Greg was different because there was no questions about what he was bringing to the table when he was drafted. He had the hardware, all of the trophies he had won in high school and college. He played on a national level in front of everybody, taking his team all the way to the national championship. So he proved the level that he could play on. He had a city hanging on his name being called during that draft, and I can't stress that enough. Portland needed this guy. They thought he was the missing piece. So important to keep in mind, okay? So Oden was a lock going into this draft. Darko was kind of a last-minute, hey, this guy could be pretty good. He had a killer workout. But no one knew much about him going into this draft. He was a relative unknown, young kid, never played any major competition against other hardened players like Oden did. So there's that. Second point I want to make, Dan, and I think you're going to find this interesting. Did you know that everybody in that draft room, including Darko Milicic, wasn't even sure that he was going to be taken with the number 2 pick? He had no clue. There was a very strong debate going on at this point, even in the war room for Detroit, whether they should take Carmelo Anthony or whether they should take Darko Milicic, up until the final minute before they made that decision. And that is quoted by the head scout of Detroit during this time, Will Robinson. You can look that up. He said it came down to them just making a decision at the last minute. So even Darko in this draft, yes, he was taken number 2, but it wasn't a clear lock number 2 by any stretch of the imagination. He could have fallen all the way to 6 or 7 had the same split second decision gone the other way and they had taken Carmelo Anthony. But that's how these things go, right? Third thing I want to point out, Detroit Pistons players were not happy at all that Darko was taken over Melo. They were pissed. And there's this famous clip of Rip Hamilton, being interviewed on ESPN after the draft. And they asked him, like, how do you feel about Darko being taken over Melo? He looked at the camera, like with an angry face for almost a minute before he even responded. There was anger in that locker room that they took Darko Milicic. And so even right off the bat, the ceiling was not very high for this guy, even within his own organization. I'm sure there was always the hope that it's going to pan out, but come on. Even when your own players are like, really, we drafted this guy? That's not a good sign. And the last thing I want to bring up to you, how can Darko Milicic be a huge letdown when his team was already amazing? He wasn't going to be the missing piece that brought Detroit to the championship. They only had that number 2 pick because they made a trade with Memphis and got lucky in the lottery. So it was kind of gravy for them. They made the Eastern Conference Finals the year before this draft, and as Dan mentioned, they won the NBA championship that very season that they drafted Darko Milicic. So again, Darko wasn't a critical missing piece here. He wasn't like the savior of the city that was expected to take him to the promised land. He was potential, and the entire hopes of that city weren't hanging on him. And you can see that in the minutes that he played and the way his teammates treated him, even down to in that draft, him not being the clear consensus number 2 pick. So was he disappointing? Yes. Was he nearly as disappointing as Greg Oden? No. And that's really all I have to say, sir. I turn it over to you.
Well, interesting rebuttals, Jeff. Well, let's get into this, right? Greg Oden, numbers guys, right? I'm a numbers guy. Rookie season, 8 points per game. 56% field goal percentage. Free throw, terrible. I'm not gonna look at that. He's a center. Doesn't matter. Rebounds, 7 rebounds per game. All right. In 2009, 2010, averaged more minutes, 23.9 minutes, 11 points per game. Still not great, but getting better. 8 rebounds per game. Free throw moves up 10%. 13%, still not reading it. It was still trash. Field goal percentage, 60%. Point of the matter is that every year, Oden got better. His ceiling was high. In college, he was a stud. The point is, though, you can't be a bust if you get injured. You are a bust if you end up being garbage. Let's be real. There was high expectations for Greg Oden. No one's denying that. There was great expectations, but he didn't let anyone down. His body broke. Are you going to get mad? So if I'm in a car accident, Jeff, if I'm supposed to go see you and I'm in a car accident, you let down because I'm in a car accident? No, you feel bad for me. No, you feel bad for me, Greg Oden's body just broke. And let's be real. That Portland team was not bad prior to Greg Oden. They had like you said, LaMarcus Aldridge, an all-star, and Brandon Roy, budding talent. Jeff would love to point in that Brandon Roy ended up leaving because of injuries as well, but since he can't talk, which I'll throw that out there for him. But point of the matter is, they were good. Greg Oden wasn't going to be the cornerstone. He was an added piece, just like you said at the beginning, an added piece to help them get over the hump. He was not the cornerstone. Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge were the 2 guys that were the cornerstone, and then Oden was supposed to fill the gap to help them get over. Now, Jeff was right. Darko Milicic was not the cornerstone of the Pistons. Wasn't expected to be. They were conference finals and they won the championship. But what happens after? The number 2 overall pick, as he matures, right? As you mature as a player, no longer a little boy, you are supposed to be great. No, he was trash. And the Pistons have stayed trash ever since. That is sorry, Pistons fans. I am sorry. But it's just what I'm a Bulls fan. I'm not good either. So I can say this, and then Jeff did something that journalists and any news outlet, anyone who's credible would absolutely be flabbergasted by. He used a self quote as a reference. He used a quote from Greg Oden to say, "Oh, I'm the biggest draft bust." Who cares if he said it? That's like when whatever his face said he was better than LeBron James on the Cavs. I don't even remember who it was, but that's my point. Self quotes don't matter, right? It is a big consensus that Darko Milicic is one of the greatest disappointments. ESPN.com, Jeff Shakin said ESPN.com, Bleacher Report, Overtime. You look this up, guys. You will see that Darko Milicic is always a top two. The two people who are sometimes ahead is Sam Bowie, and the only reason he's ahead of it because Michael Jordan, he was drafted ahead of Michael Jordan, and then the other one is Anthony Bennett. He was terrible, but I even think Greg Oden and Darko are both worse than Anthony Bennett. But those are the only two guys ever ahead of Darko Milicic. Greg Oden always, and you guys can look at this up, Greg Oden is always number 4 to 6. He's never a top 3. So if credible sources are saying this, are we really going to take the self-quote of Greg Oden to say that he's the worst just because he said it? You know? And let's not forget, Portland actually started getting better every year after Greg Oden stopped playing. So you can't say the city hung on him. No, they had hopes in him. It's a difference. Having hopes and hanging on are two different things because every year they got better after that. Now, could they have, if Greg Oden panned out, could they have been NBA championship? Yeah, but that's like saying if Darko Milicic was actually better than LeBron James, could the Pistons have quadruple peated? Absolutely. That's a dumb argument. You can't say that, you know? But the fact of the matter is, guys, someone being injured doesn't make them a draft bust. It makes them unfortunate circumstances. Someone who was claimed to be possibly better than LeBron James, just like Le Batard, like Jeff brought up, saying that, you know, this guy was better. These are people who actually thought this man, the Serbian, was going to be better than King James. That is the amount of let down. Jeff, thank you for that quote. You helped me out. The amount of let down that this man let, not just scouts, teams, the league. That's a bust. When your ceiling is supposed to be the greatest basketball player of that generation, and you're not even a top 100. That's the reality, folks. This man was not even top 100, right? That makes him the greatest bust in the NBA draft ever. This is not, guys, just like Jeff said last week between Jim Thorpe and Deion Sanders, this is not even an argument. Jeff, you might as well just shut this off. It's not even an argument. And with that, guys, I close my remarks and we leave it to you, the viewers, to vote for a mug.
For that mug, ladies and gentlemen. So, Dan, before we close, hey, folks, thank you for sticking with us. You've heard both sides of the argument. You've heard us had a chance to present counterpoints to each other's arguments. Now it's in your hands. We need you to vote. Dan, can you just quickly again go over to the folks? How can they connect with us to be able to?
You know, the GOAT podcast, you check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We're there. We're active. We're throwing out videos, clips all the time, and you'll get the links for the podcast of your choice, or YouTube channel to link, plus the voting link. You can YouTube is GOAT Sports Pod. All our videos are there. This video will be up. Clearly, if you're watching it, then you know it's up. That was dumb, but you know, I'll keep moving. If you want to email us, it's goatpodcast@hotmail.com. Check us out. Leave us a comment. Future episodes. Vote.
That's all we can say, folks. And we're excited to have you. Thank you for making us a part of your day or night. We really appreciate you listening and tuning in, whether it's through the podcast, whether it's on the video. You know, we're appreciative that you enjoy what we're talking about, and we love having you as a part of this show. So until our next debate.
No. 3 weeks, 3 times in a row, Jeff. What are you up to nowadays?
Oh, I always forget it at the end. Eventually, I'm going to get there, I promise. Yes, folks, we always end the show because, you know, we want to get to know you, and hopefully maybe you want to get to know us a little bit better as you listen in or watch in. Dan, tell us about how people can connect with you. What are you doing outside of this show?
You can follow Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We have Endurance Cross Training Fitness. Me and my wife are personal trainers. We're really invested in health. So if you're looking for a training in the DMV area, or you want YouTube videos to do workouts, or if you follow our TikTok, we have a weights and a word. So you get an inspirational word plus a workout and everything. Follow us there. Like last time, I'm gonna shout out my wife, Beauty in My Beads. It's her little shop she has. I have this awesome bracelet. Some of you guys might have seen during the show. She makes them custom made. You buy it through her. Whatever you want, necklace, bracelet, and anklet, she'll make it. So that's what I got going on, Jeff. How about you, man? What do you do, man?
Oh man, what don't I do? I feel like there's no free time between work, family, everything else. I love doing this show. Dan and I have committed a lot of time to putting these together and getting those out to you. The other thing that I do on the side outside of work is I have another podcast called Rounders, A History of Baseball in America. It's a podcast that I put out where we talk about stories throughout American history that are related to baseball. So famous people, events, going into the history of teams, catastrophes, natural disasters, murders, everything you can think of. The most interesting stories related to baseball I cover on an almost weekly basis, as much as I can get the episodes out. But I would appreciate your listenership. If you're really into sports and you also like history, I think it's a great fit for you. We'll make sure to include a link in the show notes. It's really easy to remember. It's just anchor.fm/rounders. That's the website. So if you would like to hear more of me and more about baseball, check that out. So same for Dan. We'll include links in the show notes. Dan, am I missing anything else before I send us out?
Nah. I mean, you could throw in the white flag, the towel in this debate.
Not going to happen. I'm feeling confident. Let's see what happens, right? So that's where we need you, folks. Don't forget to vote. Thank you for tuning in to another episode, and we will see you on the next one.
All right, you guys have a good day, night, something. Peace.
Whatever.